for Migration at the Regional Office for East and Horn of Africa. And I am deeply honored to be your moderator for this session and humbled to be hosting this incredible panel that I'll be introducing shortly. Now, before we get into our conversation, I want us to start on a reflective note. I want us to think back to the journey that got us here. Think back to how you ended up at this summit today. And if you do that, I bet you my bottom coin that you took part in some form of mobility, in a sense. And I know this because we are not in your sitting room. You're not in your sitting room, you're at the KICC, meaning that you had to move to get here. And this is the conversation that we will be addressing this afternoon. In the next 1 hour or less, we'll be looking at the African youth mobility to power African labor markets and trade. And our esteemed panelists here are not just experts in their fields. These are champions, visionaries, change makers of youth empowerment. And let me brag a little about the people who are here, this gang here. So we've got an incredible author whose book I think you should all read. It's called The Beacon of Hope, and how to unlock opportunities for Zambia. And even if we're not all Zambians here, I'm sure you can benefit from a copy. It's a shame he didn't bring copies here. And you can guess who is the author I am introducing. And then we also have a seasoned economist who has a track record in the UN agencies. We also have got a model, a supermodel who shook the industry single-handedly at some point in her life. And then we also have got, So I said we have a rockstar author, we've got a model, we have an economist who has an impressive track record in the UN bodies, and then we also have the latest celeb in town. This person bagged a prestigious Commonwealth Youth Innovation Award 2023. I recommend that you take pictures with this guy after this. So join me in welcoming this great panel that will be speaking to us shortly. So I'll give a brief bio of each of them as they make their intervention. But for now, let me put names to the characters I have just described. So on to my immediate left, we have Walter Kasempa. Walter is the IOM AU Youth Ambassador. And then we have Muna Jama. Muna is the CEO for Muna Beauty Limited. And then we have Ngatia. Ngatia is the UNDP Youth Board. And then we also have got Komi Chowu, who is the UNDP Regional AFCFTA Advisor. And I will start with Walter here right next to me. Walter, like I said, is a youth ambassador for the IOM and AU. He is a versatile governance expert. He's an author. He's the guy I was talking about who has a phenomenal book that you should read that he didn't bring copies of. And then a brief description about Walter. He is currently the Migration Youth Ambassador, and then he advocates for free movement of persons across the African continent. He is also, he's been listed among Zambia's top 30, under 30 youth leaders in 2023, and he offers geopolitical analysis to the AU, to the ECOSOC, and to the IOM. A big round of applause for Walter. Thank you. So, Walter, please speak to us about the value of youth mobility in Africa.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's a bit hot, but I think it's about to get hotter, even with this discussion that we're about to have. So, fundamentally speaking, for me, I believe the unity and prosperity of Africa remains the fundamental, most challenging item of our lifetime. And it is important for us to reflect on this particular principle because it directly involves with human mobility, especially from the context of young people. Now, demographically speaking, we understand that the young people of Africa are the largest constituent, which means the production of goods and services is largely contributed by young people. The consumption of goods and services is largely contributed by young people. And therefore, if we are to develop Africa, if we are to proliferate Africa's economy, then it actually means that we must leverage on young people in Africa as the focal point in regards to human mobility. Now, why is this important, you might be asking? I think, first of all, we must understand that there is cultural exchange. Cultural exchange. And let me talk about the fundamental principles of Pan-Africanism, which are unity, solidarity, and collective identity. When I came to Kenya for the first time earlier this March, I realized that one of the major things that Kenyans eat is ugali, right? And is that so interesting? Because when I came here in Zambia, we call it uwali, and it's made the exact same way. So cultural exchange helps us appreciate our oneness as an African citizenry. I think the second thing, aside from cultural exchange and the importance of youth mobility across the African continent, is understanding the very value of skills sharing and skills development. I believe when we begin to mobilize as young people and move across the African continent, we'll be able to understand the value of different skills, appreciate and have a lot of, experience sharing. Aside from having skills development, I think it also enhances entrepreneurship. And we know that entrepreneurship is really important for the development of any society, any given society in our lifetime. And the premise of entrepreneurship really is identifying a problem, finding a solution, and making money out of finding that solution. Well, how many of us in this room, just by show of hands, would agree that Africa has got a lot of problems? Yeah? So those problems are potential solutions, are potential businesses, and that cannot be done unless we leverage on young people in the context of, mobility. So all in all, I believe it is really, really important for young people to be part and parcel of the migration discourse and seeing how we can create the Africa that we want.
Thank you, Walter. And let's pause it right there because I'll come back to you because you've spoken about three key things. Cultural exchange, you've talked of skills transfer, you've also talked of entrepreneurship. We'll be coming back to you to speak more about unemployment, which is a conversation that has also been brought up in the panel that just left. For now, allow me to move to Muna. Muna is the CEO of Muna Beauty Limited, as I mentioned. And if you guessed that this is the model, the supermodel I was talking about, then you're a genius. She is a British businesswoman, sorry. She has gone on to write articles about equality and humanitarian issues, which have been received positive responses from different magazines. She is a humanitarian, a speaker, a model, like I said, and a British beauty influencer. Sorry, maybe you can switch off the microphone. Sorry about that. Muna, from your experience, and given that you have lived in so many different parts of this world in general, please tell us, in what ways do initiatives of young Africans in diaspora drive the economic growth of their home countries?
Hello? Awesome. Thank you for the introduction. And hello to you all. My name's Muna, and where should I start? So I am a diaspora. I grew up in the UK. That's where I pretty much spent most of my life in terms of education, got my first job there. And then I always... Hello? Oh, okay. So I was always exposed to my culture, which is Somali culture. So my mum would always cook traditional food. She would put on some Somali music, etc. And that is where I would relate mostly to my ethnicity, despite obviously the community that I was growing up in and etc. And by the way, it was a very fortunate one because I was now, I guess looking back, being able to use my network and my connection to leverage the position that I'm in today. So I had became very fond of my upbringing, but I actually wanted to experience it firsthand. So what I did was go back home. So to better answer your question from a personal standpoint, I think the diaspora community contribute to Africa. Particularly when I speak of my personal experiences, you know, you will always find individuals from Africa living abroad, sending money back home, you know, and that influences, of course, the growth of the community, the area, the country. Aside from that, the skill sets that you learn abroad as well, and you go back home, and you somehow find yourself being a contributor to that community in Africa. The other thing that I've noticed is social and cultural development. Now, I didn't think I had much to offer when I left the UK, and I'm not talking about my credentials, but I